At this point, you guys know I like to kick it old school, all right? So far, I've had the opportunity to talk to Dina Martin. That is the daughter of Dean Martin, one of the coolest cats of all time. You know, I'm obsessed with 1950s and 1960s contemporary art. The lifestyle, the music was incredible. Of course, the motion pictures. And to have the opportunity to talk to somebody who's related to this person, to talk to somebody who's related to Sammy Davis Jr., is a big, big treat for me. And so very much, I've been looking forward to this conversation all week long. I am joined live by Tracey Davis. Tracey Davis is the daughter of the iconic figure that was Sammy Davis Jr. Tracey, thank you so much for spending some time with us this morning. How are you?
I am fine, thank you. You're in Alamogordo?
I am, yes. Yes. Have you spent time in Southern Mexico?
My kid's dad was born in Alamogordo.
That is the craziest thing ever. Wow.
Who'd have thunk it?
Right. Out of everybody who I've had the opportunity to speak to on the phone, a lot of them are like, I've gone through Albuquerque. That's about it. I got to tell you, Tracey, at this point, I've had the opportunity to interview Dina Martin. I'm having the opportunity to talk to you now. And if I can just get Nancy Sinatra on the line one of these days, I'll be set.
There you have your own Rat Pack daughters.
That's it, yeah, because I'm obsessed with your dad and his friends. You know, I'm a Peter Lawford guy. Joey Bishop was cool, but Sinatra, Sammy Davis, and Dean Martin, I'm talking the three coolest guys in the world. And up to this day, still, you know. What was it like? What was it like, before we jump into your book, what was it like being the daughter of such an iconic figure?
Well, I consider myself extremely lucky. They are, every single one of them, they're icons. And it's kind of funny how they've come back and are popular all over again. I'm amazed at the outpouring that I've gotten. Just people just want to talk about him, and there is something about Sammy Davis Jr. And what he never did was figure out what it is about Sammy Davis Jr. You know what I'm saying? You know how people say, like, there's something about him, and then you try and figure it out, and then you run it to ground. He never did it, and I think that he remained unique and a fabulous entertainer and a pretty darn good father.
Yeah, no doubt. Let me ask you, whenever you were young, do you remember times when you and your dad were hanging out with Sinatra and Dean Martin? Did you guys ever have, like, family gatherings or get-togethers and things like that?
Oh, sure. They used to come when we lived in Beverly Hills. They used to come, Frank and Dean, over to the house sometimes late at night after a show, or they would hang out and play cards. And I used to sneak down and sit on my dad's lap while they were playing cards and listen to them tell stories and curse and all kinds of good stuff. So yeah. And then when I got married, Frank Sinatra, that was my bachelorette party. I was hanging with my dad and Frank Sinatra and the McGuire sisters backstage in Vegas at the Nugget.
Oh my God!
So it was pretty cool.
Yeah. That's I can't even imagine being in a room. I mean, again, I look at your dad and these two guys. For me, you know, starstruck galore. I couldn't imagine. I'd faint. I'd pass out and I'd faint. I'd have a heart attack right there to be sitting in a room with three people with the stature of what your dad and his friends had.
They had this remarkable friendship, I think, that translated history, and also, you know, they're doing films together and hanging out on stage together and kind of running the town in Vegas when you're 30-ish. I can't think of anything better than that.
Yeah, no doubt. Speaking with Tracey Davis, daughter of the iconic figure Sammy Davis Jr. I'm a big biopic guy when it comes to iconic figures. Back, I think, in the late 90s, HBO did one of those HBO movies where I think Don Cheadle played your dad. You had Ray Liotta played Sinatra. And it was interesting because I guess it showed a personal side of how close these guys were together. I was really fascinated by that because, yeah, sure, there's Hollywood duos or teams, but these guys were legit buddies, and they hung out and they had each other's back, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, and I think, you know, at the time, too, the 60s were so turbulent, but also that there, you know, in our household, we got death threats. That was probably a weekly occurrence, you know, things written on our cars or whatever. So when you said they had their back, yeah, literally, you know, looking out for one another, because there was a faction of people that weren't okay with it. But for the most part, I think people, when they were that group and they had that show and they called it The Summit, and that was at the Sands, and anybody who was anybody was there. I think that kind of cemented them in history in terms of just probably the greatest bunch of entertainers who got together and did shows because they thought it was cool and it was a kick. Not because, boy, we're going to make a whole bunch of money and you come out and whatever. They hung out on stage and just kind of ad-libbed it the whole time. Everybody sang some songs, everybody whatever. I remember Dean Martin, the famous thing when you see the film of it, Dean Martin picks my dad up and says, I want to thank the NAACP for this award.
That's right, yeah.
It's funny. But they poke fun at each other and they loved each other. So it was a good time for my dad, a very good time.
We're joined live this morning with Tracey Davis. Tracey Davis is the daughter of Sammy Davis Jr. She just wrote a book about her pop. And awesome conversation we're having. Tracey, interesting week. Today, the 16th, is the 24-year mark. Your dad passed away 24 years ago. I think 3 days ago was the 13th that Sinatra passed away. I think it was the 13th, May 13th, 1998. So kind of strange the way they passed away, so close together in terms of same month, day, thing like that. I began reading your book, and I noticed that my impression was that you and your pop really formed a close relationship toward the end of his life. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, we did, because my dad was dying and my son was starting, growing in my stomach. So we had 9 months, like basically a great 9 months together of talking through issues and whatever and problems and good times and bad times. And there were times we both cried. I remember my dad telling me, looking at me, and he had tears in his eyes, and I said, what? And he said, I'm just scared today.
Yeah.
And I looked at my dad. I mean, even now I'm welling up, but just to be able to hold his hand, it was an honor and a privilege to have that time with him. And I thank God every day that I had that time.
Yeah.
And he did see my son be born, and he did know his name was Sam. And he had some time to visit with him before he passed away, which was 3 weeks later, May 16th.
We're speaking with Tracey Davis this morning. She is the daughter of Sammy Davis Jr. I know we're running out of time. You talk about how your dad, more or less, he got snubbed from doing the Kennedy inauguration. Now, I don't know if that biopic that I referenced earlier was accurate, but it almost kind of seemed like Kennedy rode this wave off of Sinatra and your dad and Dean Martin's popularity to help get him elected. Once he got elected, his advisors were like, well, you used them, now don't have anything to do with them. I guess because of Sinatra's mob connections. I don't know if that was true or not, but what was that? Was your dad, did he carry that along? Was he pretty upset about that whole thing, about the Kennedy
Never got
stuff?
over it.
Never did, yeah.
Never got over it. It stuck with him. I won't say like it consumed him or anything, but he thought about it often, It really affected him because he really busted his butt and thought he didn't do it to go to the inaugural, but he was pretty much thinking, well, I'm going to go. I've done so much work and, we know each other and we've been to each other's houses. I would think I would be invited, and he wasn't. And it stung. It stung for a long time.
There was the part in that movie that I thought was funny when there's a part where after Kennedy gets elected, Sinatra hears that Kennedy's going to be coming back into California, and instead of staying with him, they tell him he's going to be staying at Bing Crosby's house, and Sinatra flips out, because Crosby was, he was going for the other guy during that election. And totally. I mean, they rode this wave off of their popularity for him to get elected. And then he more or less kind of turned his back on him, which I thought was kind of messed up. But I got to tell you, I could probably talk to you for hours. You know what I mean? I'm a huge fan. I love your dad. I love his work. I think he was incredible. I love the quote that you gave earlier. He was a 5'6", 120-pound. He was a giant. You know what I mean? And the way he used his talents to get through the tough times. I mean, he was an incredible human being, and I wish these guys were still around just to be able to watch him do interviews on TV. But I can't thank you enough for giving me an opportunity to talk to you. Like I said, I'm a huge fan, and all I need now is Nancy Sinatra to come online with me, and then I'm gonna have all you guys. It's gonna happen one of these days.
Go.
Again, hey, I appreciate you very much.
If not Nancy, get Tina. Tina will do it.
Yeah, either. I'm up for anybody. But again, appreciate the time you've given me. And again, the book's called The Personal Journey with My Father. It's a story of Tracey Davis and Sammy Davis Jr. Again, thank you so much for the time, and best of luck with everything in the future.
Thank you for having me.